Thank you for sticking around till the end of Fed Forum. How has the conference been so far? All right, and the weather held off just enough, so definitely helped out. Well, thank you for joining. I've got Mark Williams up here. We're going to talk a little bit about the Zero Trust journey and just how that is. It's not a destination. It's a journey that never ends. So we can go to the next slide, please. But first, I'm going to kick off and talk a little bit about the AI platform, or ServiceNow being the AI platform for government transformation. As you know, many government agencies are leveraging our platform throughout their organizations, running from IT operations, IT service management, all the way to human resource, emergency response. One of the things that AI is going to do is really going to help accelerate and make the employee workforce operate better and faster because everything is operating on a single ServiceNow platform. You may ask, what am I going to get out of this? Well, you're going to get a reduction in costs and driving of efficiencies through the use of ServiceNow's genetic AI, data, and workflow automation. Essentially, ServiceNow stands as the single tower for your organization, collecting the data and driving operational efficiencies throughout the organization. Now, I'm going to put Mark to work here a little bit. So, welcoming Mark Williams to the stage. Mark is the Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer at Stride Inc. Mark brings us with a roughly 30 years of cybersecurity background, where he's operated in many positions, including executive roles with Microsoft and KPMG International. Well, Mark, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's get started. So, I'm going to ask a few questions to you, and we will likely leave enough time where we can get some audience participation and provide some thoughts or ask our thoughts on Zero Trust. But Zero Trust has been around for a while. However, in I'd say the last 3 to 4 years, it's really come to the forefront of industry and government. What do you feel has led to Zero Trust being such a prominent topic across government and industry these past few years?
Let's say Equifax, Target, advanced persistent threats, and then for the government got hit really hard with the third parties such as SolarWinds. It's getting too much access, too much attack surface, and risking too much data loss.
Absolutely. And, as we think about that, with all of these attacks that have happened and breaches that have happened, Zero Trust has come about. And, can you walk me through how Zero Trust isn't necessarily a specific solution, point-in-time solution, but more how you approached the Zero Trust journey in the organizations that you've been in?
Sure. So you're right. It's not a journey. It's an architecture. It defines certain things that you fill in with different technologies. No one technology can deliver it all. Plus, you also have a personal component as well. You have to train people. So it's not technology. But I typically, when I go about the journey, I start with identity because identity has spread out so much. You have people with multiple identities in the same company. You don't know who should access what. You have to lock down all of your roles. You lock down the identities so you can associate them with individuals. And then you have to assign a trust score based on risk of the individual for your insider threat program as well. Next, I would focus on your devices. You have to know who has what device, because now we have remote management or remote personnel. So now you have people using their own personal devices coming in from home. You have government issued or corporate issued. You're also going to have servers, virtual, physical. You need to know your entire population, the CMDB by ServiceNow. It's a great place. You store all that information, you assess the data. Now you understand what individuals are accessing what type of data and what type of additional controls need to be put in place. Then you move to segmentation and microsegmentation. Only allow devices to communicate with devices they're authorized to communicate with. That's a high level short term. We can go much deeper if you want.
Problem solved. Well, yeah, I'm going to throw one out there. I mean, you did mention about the diversity of where the workforce is getting into your network or accessing your network. What would you say, like COVID and the obviously drop of the hat, everyone's working from home, everyone's working remotely. How has Zero Trust helped, in allowing that transition? And what were maybe some of the additional challenges that brought on organizations in implementing this type of architecture?
Oh, the challenge has been controlling the edge, which can't be done anymore because data is extracted and put on people's laptops, which are outside of your area of direct control. However, using SASE or a Zero Trust network access component, you can siphon all that attack surface down to one location to enforce policy and then apply additional policy once you pass that first policy. So it's doable, depends on how you manage mobile device management. Don't allow people to download the data and retain it on their personal devices or any GFE that happens to be in their possession. Cannot leave the boundary.
From a challenge perspective, how do you deal with when those employees want or need access, or executives are saying, I need to have this on my phone. I want to use a BlackBerry still. I need my email. How have you approached that, and have you been successful in either talking them off of that ledge or finding ways to make the technology work?
Today, I just say no. It has to be the CEO who can override me, but outside of that, I just say no. But no, it's a challenge. You have to make decisions. Are you going to allow personal equipment? If so, are you going to enforce compliance policies? Are you going to enforce security levels? It's a long assessment of risk on what choice you make. It's not easy.
So we've got a lot of folks that are very interested in security here. How do you get the end user population to buy in to potentially extra hurdles that they may need to deal with?
You overtrain them. Bog them down once a month with about 4 hours of training. They love it. So employees want their job to be easier. So the more seamless you can make the experience without having to, put multiple layers of authentication, they're going to be happy. They want single sign-on to everything. They only want to authenticate the one time. So moving to pass keys, so I don't have to have multiple apps running to authenticate somewhere. These are the types of things. If you look at it less from a security perspective, but more from the end user perspective and the end user experience, it makes it easier. So then you can say, well, this is what I need to do here to make it easier for them, but still meet my security bar.
Got it. So there's an element of selling it. This is good for you, and here's why. And in reality, still getting your accomplishing what you want to do and accomplishing your needs.
We're a customer service organization, security. We have a customer base. There are the employees and our external customers. So you have to serve them.
Yeah. Back on the endpoints and ensuring that you know where you are. And how do you, and you can try to get a little more direct on this, how do you ensure that you've addressed all of your endpoints? And what types of activities do you take to ensure that you know where your data is and where endpoints can be, or where your data can be accessed and what endpoints you're potentially allowing?
So for external endpoints, everything comes through an MDM system, registered, non-registered. We collect all of that data. We feed it back into the SIEM. We monitor it all. Those are pretty easy to do because there's a ton of tools, as you're all aware, that you can capture all sorts of data off of the device. The internal is more fun because people like to do shadow IT. So we scan every address space that we own, and we also have an external regulator that monitors our entire external attack space so we can identify issues and quickly respond before they become a real issue.
Great. What would you say have been the greatest benefits of implementing a zero trust architecture?
Much lower attack surface, If we do happen to experience a breach, we can restrict it to only that zone. So we don't have to worry about massive lateral movement or mass data exfiltration.
Conversely, what have been kind of the biggest challenges of implementing it? And yes, conceptually, it's a great idea. Let's do it. When rubber hits the road, where are the things that you're...
Legacy systems and tech debt. A lot of them don't support the technologies that you're using for implementing ZTA. What do you do with that? You still have to use the system. You still have to have access to that system. So you have to do a hybrid implementation. ZTA everywhere you can, and then just build traditional controls around that tech debt.
How effective have you been in building off or drawing down on that tech debt? And what steps do you do? Is it strictly just you budget, you develop a new system, or how have you taken an approach to that?
I don't own that budget line. Success varies. It depends on what the system is, what the system does. Can we move this into a modern architecture within 6 months or a year? With that, you start putting blocks in place just to restrict those systems from even accessing other systems on the network, except what they have to access. So therefore, you're at least reducing the impact should one of those systems become compromised, but you're not going to get a full zero trust implementation. So you definitely need a blueprint, and as government workers know, a lot of these systems tend to stick around for a very, very long time. Which makes it a challenge when you're being mandated to get to a zero trust architecture, but not being funded to upgrade these systems and modernize them.
I actually heard a statement, I want to say it was last week, where someone told me, I've got the most secure 40-year-old system in the entire government. So I think the audience can definitely relate with that.
Just run DOS.
No one knows how to hack it anymore. Based on your interactions with the government and industry, what would you say is the landscape of these organizations implementing a zero trust architecture?
Diverse.
Diverse.
It's very diverse. DoD has their new regulation to advance and fast forward to get to zero trust architecture. The size of their attack surface, that is not going to be an easy challenge. That's going to be massive. Right now, there is progress across the board. Some agencies are ahead of other agencies, but all agencies are dealing with tech debt. They're dealing with systems that they just cannot move off of. There are even a couple of mainframes I'm aware of. So it varies. Industry, it varies greatly. Some have not even considered it. Some haven't even put it on their roadmap. The ones that have don't necessarily have the budgets to move the mountain, so it varies.
What would you say needs to help drive it? Is it more regulation? Is it more guidance? Is it industry? Is it better tooling?
Well, the tooling's great. It's not easy to put together a blueprint with the tooling because you don't want to get locked into a technology that you can't get out of. But that's addressable. Only way to really spark it, unfortunately, I've found so far, has been a breach in your industry. That suddenly gets leaders really receptive to talking about funding and change.
Yeah.
Hopefully that does not happen to anybody in this room. In 30 years, I've not had a breach yet, and I'm thankful for that. I'm scared it's happening tomorrow because in my industry right now, we have a massive increase of what's going on in this world.
You just jinxed yourself by making that statement. Anybody else think that was pretty bold?
That's not a jinx. That's just a fact. Facts aren't positive nor negative. They're just facts.
Good. Well, I want the audience to get a little prepared in here and start thinking about some questions here. I'll open it up. I've got another question that I can save, but would love to get some juices flowing and get some audience participation. So this guy up here up front, Mr. Paradin, what would you like to ask?
So if I had aspirations to be a CISO, right, or a current CISO, what would be the first thing you would basically suggest in terms of addressing maybe my maturity is not as high as other agencies? Where would I start, right? Like what would be a recommendation you would give if I was starting out my organization as a CISO?
For zero trust or in general?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
For zero trust, since this is the topic, right?
For zero trust, you need to understand your attack surface, you need to understand your internal operational service, and you need to understand your people. Once you can get understanding of those three key areas, then you can start implementing policy changes or architectural changes to start a true zero trust journey.
One thing I think I'd add there too is also understanding what tooling you have in place today. Because we talk about it, Mark. I'm certain you get calls from vendors that want to sit down and pitch you that I've got your zero trust solution, and I think we've all gotten to the point where there's not one single solution. It's a combination of lots of different IT things that you currently own, and really just trying to tweak things, trying to integrate things. So I think one of the key areas that I like to recommend is really understanding what you have as far as your inventory of IT and what can you leverage to build and not build, but enable these concepts of zero trust, because you're not starting from scratch. Most of these organizations have a lot of security tooling that's in place, and it's maybe just adding integrations or leveraging our platform like ServiceNow that integrates with all of these security tools. So I think that's a key area to think about as well.
Well, I'm actually going to pull a thread on that, and since we're going to leverage the Now platform, I want to bring it up a notch in terms of generative AI. I know this is probably groundbreaking in terms of zero trust, but are you seeing any sort of uptick in advancement in leveraging AI with zero trust, or
100%.
Okay.
I mean, it's critical. So and we'll go to ServiceNow. I'll caveat that I do not personally use ServiceNow in this manner, but I have this option. So you have the core ServiceNow, you have the GRC, the incident response, the security ops, and the CMDB. I load my content in there. I integrate with Entra ID. Now I have identity information as well. I have network information coming in through the SIEM. I can now apply policy in ServiceNow and automate my runbooks so that if certain activities are identified, it can automatically make changes and apply new policy in real time. That's a component of the AI. I can actually look at identities, look at the risk of the identity, and not allow access at all in real time.
Yeah, and I think we have to. I think we're on the defensive. The folks that are offensive trying to get into our networks, they're leveraging AI like crazy. And now the exploits are much easier. Something that would take weeks or months to develop in the past, you can do it through ChatGPT. And
not
so,
through ChatGPT, but you can some other
through other AI platforms. And so from a defensive side, we really need to start leveraging AI significantly more to stay on top of it.
You can also, one of the nice parts of AI and some of the other tooling available from other vendors, you can simulate attacks on your infrastructure as it exists today based on threat intelligence that is coming in, vulnerability data coming. You can actually model from across your entire network what the impacts of that attack will be. So now you can move your resources to the appropriate places so it doesn't become an issue.
Right. Brian Myers.
Yeah.
I run our risk practice for part of the government. So Zero Trust was built before we really had a feeling for what AI was going to be. Mike, you started out talking about our generative AI or agentic AI. How do you see that changing with Zero Trust? Do you see us adding a pillar? Do you see agents being part of the data and the identified pillars? Where do you see agentic AI sitting in the zero trust architecture?
In the decision engine.
In the decision.
Yeah, it should include all of those data feeds, every piece of data you can feed it from security. It will be the decision engine.
Right. So the governance of that is going to be, a critical piece of how we secure networks and infrastructure. So do you see the architecture changing, or you see it just in the decision?
Right now, in the zero trust component, it's predominant there. Now, your endpoints are going to have AI for defense. You're going to have AI and network for intelligent routing and things of that nature. So AI can play anywhere in the stack. But
Absolutely.
For a zero trust architecture, greatest benefit is in that decision engine. And then based on the decisions it sends out to the policy enforcement components, AI can play there as well.
Appreciate it.
Hey, good afternoon. My name's Scott Flynn, and I work with Brian and Dave for security operations in the DoD and Intel side. So I'm really happy to hear you talk about some of the modules within security operations itself: threat intelligence, attack surface, vulnerability management. It's all very important, and thank you for mentioning that. My question is a little more nuanced, as pretty much one of the few people in our ranks on the DoD side focusing on zero trust at any great depth, 1.1 through 7.6, the 800-207 picture, and it basically looks like ServiceNow's platform. In the grand scheme of things, with the target and advanced capabilities being met by 2027, and automation and orchestration, pillar 6, it's what the platform does. My question is along the nuances of how are you tracking zero trust capabilities being met if it's not automated and it's not orchestrated, but it's accountable? What is your tolerance for what doesn't necessarily transact in real time in an obligatory standpoint where you feel that it's met, but it's not necessarily as sexy and digital as one would like? What is your thought process?
My thought process or OIG's thought process?
Pick one.
My thought process is if it's doing the function that it needs to do and it does it well, I can still pull metrics. I just can't pull them real time.
Right.
Fine. We can automate some of that for now.
Right.
And next fiscal year, we can budget to replace it with something that can fully integrate.
Okay.
OIG is going to be a little tougher because you're going to have to provide evidence of its functionality and working. That's, in some cases, that's very hard to do.
So if we can show a reputable body of evidence and chain of custody where it's not necessarily real time and digitized, but it is accountable, that meets the need, you think, in your eyes? Because we're doing these planning sessions right now where we are going to be stuck in manual versus hybrids that are a little bit of both versus fully automated. Yeah. And nobody can really answer the fully manual and won't change for a little while question that you just did. So
I don't deal with OIG, thankfully. I do, however, have to deal with PwC and KPMG,
right.
And that's what we have to do with some of our legacy components. We have a trail we can prove, we can show, we run the pen test. Here's the identification of that activity. So it was blocked, we can see the trail. And that generally pleases them.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Scott.
What's going on, everybody? John Blunt, HUD OIG. Sorry, see where this is going. I'm the PMO lead, and I've been tasked to take on zero trust from a project management standpoint. We literally just stepped off with a kickoff meeting yesterday. From your experiences, as the lessons learned from your journey that you've already gone through, both of you in general, what would be some areas of opportunity or knowledge management that you would implement as you go through these different approaches or phases of implementing zero trust?
Yeah, running or PMing zero trust. Wow. I wouldn't even know where to start there. If you draw out zero trust and you draw out your journey, which everyone should do because you need a strategy,
Right.
things should be broken into different pillars. Your highest priorities, identity, devices, data. Each one of those has multiple steps in it as well to get to the full ZTA. So you break out every component of the ZTA architecture, and each one of those is its own project with its own growth cycle that ultimately will meet the overall design. But nobody can tackle from A to Z zero trust in a short window of time and be effective.
The goal I was looking at was taking like kind of a hybrid agile approach to it, where that I think from just the initial, it's like six, it was 5 domains, 7 for DoD, but it's like 32 activities per actual pillar or something in total for each level. Correction. Is it a bad approach to assume that the areas of responsibility between IT infrastructure and security are going to understand what their roles are, or does someone have to kind of coordinate between the two of them what needs to be done?
You definitely need very, very clearly defined roles and responsibilities and buy off from senior leadership.
Okay.
And I would also say, too, I mean, taking on this journey, as Mark mentioned, it's a massive effort, right? And, what I always like to say, find the areas where you can get some quick and easy wins, okay? So look at, come up with the strategy. Hey, this is what we want to do. Realize that it's not a 12-month strategy. It's probably a 3 or 5 year strategy. And identify the areas where, you know what, this stuff we can actually tackle and we can get done in the next 3 months. Get some momentum, get some buy-in, have those stakeholders see that, okay, we can actually, we don't have to, eat the whole gorilla, or the whole elephant, take one bite at a time, I think that would be some advice that I would give is take off those bite-sized chunks and don't try to boil the ocean through. No.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, Evan McClure here. Question for organizations, probably not as big of a deal in DoD because they have pretty stringent data classification standards and whatnot. But for organizations that don't have data classification standards, which may or may not be debatable till you talk to a foundational aspect of zero trust, where, in your opinion, does that fall in the priority list if somebody's just embarking on the journey or wants to go down to the zero trust path?
Well,
and is it even achievable, I guess?
Government doesn't necessarily do this the way commercials do it, but even if it's not classified, there's a business impact assessment that is typically done annually. It identifies each division and organization inside the company and what their critical data elements are, and then we track those to where they reside. That's how we go about doing it, because even though there's a data classification, in commercial world, people screw it up all the time. They don't put the right designation or they don't designate it at all. So we can't rely on that always. Now we can use tools like Purview to go out, search our data stores and automatically put the classification and the restrictions on the data in real time. But that's another huge undertaking in its own.
Yeah, and I think data classification within industry is a big effort. Even ServiceNow, we've got different levels. We've got corporate data, we've got corporate sensitive data, we've got customer data, and we've got public data. And sometimes those pieces of data will all be in the same location. And how do you handle those? But typically, you will need to come up with, okay, if this is corporate data, I can handle it this way. If this is customer data, I've got to handle it somewhat differently. And so I think doing that data categorization is pretty critical in this.
You also have retention requirements and some data that you want to have destroyed as soon as the retention data is hit. So, it's an overall strategy that has to be thought through. And there's no single solution, but for the zero trust, if you start with the BIA, you can at least identify your critical data stores to each business and focus there.
Thank you all for the insightful questions. I think we're getting close to time. Mark, do you have anything else that you would like to add? I think my last question was going to be, what would your one piece of advice be to agencies or organizations looking to start their zero trust journey? But I think we've discussed that over the last couple of questions. So
I can tell you without giving too much information away. So zero trust as a concept derived out of an open group function back in the 90s that was called edgeless networking. The death of the perimeter is what it was focused on. That the perimeter was no longer valid. At the time, I was still with Microsoft. I was there for a little over 12 years, and I oversaw security for what at the time was unfortunately called Business Productivity Online Suite, or BPOS for short. Someone did not think that through. And we had no firewall that could possibly handle the throughput of traffic that we were pumping. So we were having to attack a lot of the same problems then that we are now trying to address holistically across the board. It was a challenge then, and it continues to be a challenge. Thankfully, when I left Microsoft, we had made great progress in that journey. I can't speak to where they are today.
very nice. Well, a reminder to everybody, our Knowledge 2025 is in May this year at the Venetian in Las Vegas. It is ServiceNow's largest customer conference. I strongly recommend everyone take a look into it and attend if possible. And lastly here, if you want to learn more about the AI platform, we've got the QR codes up here, as well as how you can use ServiceNow for rapid results for the new rapid results product for the government transformation suite. That was what Chris Eddy announced earlier today. And then lastly, one more QR code for Knowledge 25. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us today. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the evening.